unbelievably, we have slowly crept into 4 seasons of us rambling about coaching. How the heck has that happened?
I don't know, but I'm delighted. I'm delighted there's a season 4, back by popular demand.
Of just us.
People. Yeah, just you, me, and one other follower.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you've been like world traveler in the last few weeks and stuff.
Yeah, you might know my accent has slightly changed. Went to New York for the week.
Brooklyn twang.
That's it. Yeah. Great time in New York. I saw some baseball for the first time, like proper baseball, Yankees or Red Sox. Really interesting. We might talk about that at some time. Went to the NBA game, had to drag my beautiful wife to a game to be like, this is the NBA. So we bought everything, foam finger, hats, the whole shebang, and went to the theatre, obviously. But yeah, loads of stuff, loads of, I mean, I think New Yorkers would absolutely completely dismiss it because it's not a bigger London, but the busy, hectic nature, move, lots to see, go on foot was quite similar. And the last time I was in New York, I was before London, so 10 years ago. So it was different. Yeah, some things weren't as like, whoa, as they were when I went before. But yeah, I had a great time. Needed a holiday when I came home, so that's a sign of a good holiday.
Yeah, right? Loads of walking, I'm guessing, then.
Yeah. Saw a lot.
Nice.
Read a lot about the different places, which is, the new version of me. Be informed so that you can maximize your time there. So yeah, it was good. Brilliant.
Lovely. Very nice.
How are you?
I've spent a lot of time coaching.
Oh, brilliant.
I know. Last week, I had a bit of a Twitter reflection rant about it last week. I did Suns team of under 8s on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, I went in and did pretty much an hour and a half with the under 11s coach and the kids there. Then did the 15s, recorded the 15s coach working full pitch. They've got a cup final tonight, actually. So he wanted to do some stuff there, and then kind of played around with some bits with him and dipped into some different things, some unplanned challenges that we threw in to try and get the best out of people and make some different things happen, which is quite interesting, thinking on your feet to do some different things. And then the day after that, I went and did some session with the under 13. That's an interesting one. That's something for us to talk about. And then stayed on and did a bit with the first team that was mainly refereeing. But so like 5 sessions last week. It was a lot of time on the grass. It was nice.
Lovely. Do you want to go into the 13s thing now, or is that for later?
Right. So here, I know we've already gone off piece, Chuck.
Yeah.
So the coach asked me to do a session on. He wanted them to get better at playing under pressure. And my interpretation of that might have been different to his, in the sense that I think he wanted them to be pressed quickly with defenders trying to get the ball off them quickly. So I went slightly at it a different way, but I brought all the kids in and said, look, I'm going to coach in a way now that is not normal for me. And I said, by the end of this hour, you will probably not like me very much. And they were like, ooh, this is interesting. Because I've worked with them quite a few times this year. So they know me, even though they're not my team, so to speak. And I said, I'm going to shout at you. I'm going to moan at you. I'm going to be really on your case for an hour. With my thought process, right? And that, because I said to them, is that, how do I normally coach? And they're like, oh, you're really nice. I'm like, right, okay. So this is, you're going to get a different version. And I said, it's going to start with, I'm also going to make you run loads. To which one kid went, oh, brilliant. I went, Harry, we'll see if you still think that that's brilliant. Because what I wanted to do, so my version of playing under pressure in that stage was an adult getting on their case a lot to affect what they're thinking about and whether they can think clearly. And being under physical fatigue, could they deal with the body's prioritizing other things now, which is trying to breathe and keep moving, They've got someone in their head having a go at them, so they're probably not concentrating or focusing as much as they would be. Can they then play under pressure? Which was really interesting, because right from the start, I then properly got into them about, I said, right, we're going to just do a warm up on the move with a partner, playing the ball. But as they were moving, I was like, that's not good enough. Punch it in. Poor pass. You can do better than that. And straight away, they were like, oh, this is not normal. But it was really interesting, because I hated it. Like to my core, I hated doing that. Yet also, which I thought was a smart move for me, which doesn't normally happen, I went to the parents and said, this is how I'm going to coach tonight. Because they've seen me coach loads. And I said, look, this won't be the normal version of me. To which a few of them went, oh no, I'm pleased if you shout at him for a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it was interesting, because I was really getting at a few of them.
Yeah.
Do that again, not good enough. Offside, that's the 4th time you've been offside. Come on, George, not good enough.
Yeah.
Like, properly get into them, to the point of, like, the game was playing and they were turning to look at me mid-game.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, why are you looking at me? Yeah. But it got to the stage, I was like, it was really, the interesting part was between practices. So let me just explain what the practice is. Apologize for this long rant here. It was, we had 11 kids, always a brilliant number to work with. Goalie in each end, and one of the kids was injured, so couldn't really play. So we had a 5 and a 4, and one would go that way and play 1v none to score. Then they would come back playing 1v1. Then it would go back the other way playing 2v1. Then it would come back. So a waves type of thing that you might do in basketball as well, right?
For sure, yeah.
But I deliberately made the pitch long, so physically they were going to be under pressure.
Yeah.
But and I made them do 2 reps without break. And then the conversation that I had in the break was really interesting. It was fascinating. That's where the real richness came out about, okay, what happens when we're under pressure?
Yeah.
We just panic. Okay. Why is that though? Well, what's making you panic? Well, you're shouting at us. Okay. What happens if you're playing at Anfield on Saturday and you've got 60,000 people there? Do you ask them to be quiet?
Shush. Yeah.
I think. But it was really interesting about how then one of the kids, it was Harry actually, talked about how out of possession, and bear in mind these are 12 and 13-year-old kids.
Okay.
Out of possession, he was like, we're all over the shop. People are just chasing the ball, they're just getting passed around. I said, because all that happens is when you're fatigued, your brain goes zoom, and you see the opponent and not the space and miss the opportunities. And you kind of get into this threat state of stuff. But the more fatigue they got, the better they got, because they started to organize. Like, don't run, leave that, come here, let's be hard to beat. And it was fascinating. But as a way of coaching, it was deliberate and it was planned. Mm-hmm. But I definitely couldn't, like, man, I was knackered. You couldn't coach like that every week.
But
amazing. We see it, though, don't we?
We do. We do see it.
Sorry, what do you make of all that?
Oh my God, no, I love it. I love it. And I hope people who are listening stop and pause and think about, like, so many things. You should think about so many things now, really. What I was thinking about is how quickly you saw a change in behavior where the head was moving over to you, getting your validation, seeking your, is that right? Is that right? When they lost a sense of, well, what are my intentions and what decision can I make and how can I recover from this? I wondered if this style of coaching that isn't planned and purposeful, if people are aware, or in fact it actually does dilute the quality of the peer check-in, the peer evaluation, the peer support, because the power dynamic has changed with that kind of dominant voice and the critique. And then obviously that break in play where you're talking about the feedback, what type of feedback and how they're putting importance on different things, different people materialize, when things go wrong. So again, it's linking me to scenarios. And I don't think it's just an invasion sport type of setup. I think if you did it in cycling or swimming, even though the environment is a little bit different, it's you changing the experience they're having to evoke some emotion. I think it's fascinating, but the planned part is interesting. Like you had to get ready for it, you know, and it does. Yeah, it links to a tweet that we saw. So nice, nice segue. So we both saw a tweet this week from Crody Royal that said, coaches create themselves in their teams. And he puts in a quote that's here. And I think what's interesting in that is he uses a Phil Jackson quote, as you saw, and references Dennis Rodman's reaction. Now, for those, and we spoke about The Last Dance, for those who don't know Dennis Rodman, have you been living under a rock? If you're now out of that rock, I will tell you. Dennis Rodman would be kind of your maverick, your hard worker, core part of the team, but had different needs to some of the other players. And Phil Jackson, in their relationship, sometimes went to loggerheads, but when Phil knew what Dennis Rodman needed, how to get the best out of him, he made different allowances. And he's talking in this particular tweet, which got me, about the sideline pacing, which I see in a lot of sports. And I know sometimes, again, we've chatted about this endlessly, that coaches sometimes don't know how to behave when they don't have a direct thing to do. So I'm not putting down cones or picking up. I'm not writing a note. I'm not speaking to someone. So I'm okay to just be. And then when it comes into a game, if I'm perceived to be sitting, standing, yelling, doing something, if I'm perceived to be doing those particular things, does that mean a certain thing? And I just thought this tweet was brilliant, because we're talking about a level of self-awareness, which you had going into the plan session. You spoke to the parents, you spoke to the kids, you really came out of yourself and were able to tune into the individuals to be then able to go, what impacted that? Ask the right questions in the break for them to get a different experience. And we know that emotions are linked to learning. So you evoke certain emotions, the decision making, then you can challenge the intent and seek to understand where it came from. I'm just like, from your example that links into that, and for coaches to think, you know, are they morphing into me? Are they going to become, if they do in future, coaches, are they going to coach like me? Which in a certain way is amplifying the role model title that we say coaches have, but in some cases could be to the athlete's detriment, the participant's detriment, the future coach's detriment, you know? What were your thoughts on that tweet?
Yeah, similar. I always have this kind of voice in my head of Jeff Noonan that I used to coach with at Fulham, who's now at the FA, who always used to talk about how he thought that the kids are a product of the coach in terms of the environment that the coach creates, the behaviours that the coach has. The kids are a mirror of that.
Right, interesting.
And I definitely see elements of it. And I think Phil Jackson kind of, you know, by having a certain behavior, it's almost like it allows the kids to have that behavior. Yeah. Or Dennis Rodman in this kind of particular example, who I would probably say is a very large kid. But I think that's the same in probably youth sport as well. You know, and we had one in my son's match not long ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, where it happened to be on him, but it was, he got the ball off a kid, he's running away, and the kid has just volleyed him, like waist height, booted him, and he's gone down on the floor crying. And the their coaches have just, it's a free kick, fine, carry on. Now, I think we have a responsibility, but he was also their best player. But I think we have a responsibility as coaches to teach young people, in this case, there happen to be 7 and 8 year olds, what is not necessarily right and wrong, but what's appropriate or not appropriate when you're playing a sport. And that for me is a great moment to take him off the pitch for 5 minutes, not send him off or any of that nonsense, but take him off the pitch for 5 minutes and just say, look, he knows. He already knows he can't do that because, you know, he understands. He's sit down, calm down. What would happen if this was in a proper game of football? You get sent off. What's the impact? Well, we have to play with one less player. Our teammates have to work a lot harder. It's much more difficult. Right? How do you think that other child felt? Well, it probably hurt him, etc. So I think you can have a sensible conversation with a kid, but take him off the pitch. Put another kid on, so you're not playing one less. But I think we have a responsibility to do that. But all they did was then model that behaviour was all right.
Yeah.
When, like, I can't go out for a walk down the road here and, you know, go past somebody and go, oh, I don't like you very much. You're giving me a dirty look. I'm just going to kick you. Like, you can't. You don't do that in normal human life. No. But I think we have to model this and be brave, even if you lose a goal or two. I mean, who cares? Honestly, it's underage football, but we have to do that.
But that's a really good point about the life skills, the transitions that, you know, you come off the pitch or out of the court or out of the pool, and for the rest of the majority of the day, you're in real life. You know, if you have 2-a-day sessions, you're still only 4 hours in that space and then back into real life. And it's that ripple effect even in the downtime, as that kid is walking from A to B or trying to explain to someone who hasn't seen the session or the game what happened. How are they articulating that they kicked somebody or they embraced somebody with some language or went to physically be in someone else's space? And then what do they think when they travel, as you said, into school or into their friendship group or into a job interview, if it lies dormant for a while and comes back out, what it triggers, you know? So it just goes back to the responsibility, I guess, as a coach and the many hats you wear, you know, that quote there was brilliant, because I've spent a whole season watching behaviors on the sideline, joystick coaching from some opposition coaches, screaming in some cases at adults, at women on the pitch. And I'm kind of going, but they're over there, that she's a goalkeeper going to kick it out. She's looking at the pitch from this angle. You're in the dugout upset about something because something hasn't materialized in a training session that they have the understanding, confidence or competence to execute. So to hide your, you know, what a disconnect or inability to get that message across, you're now going to berate somebody to just play it this way. And I'm like, my goodness, you know, but then, you know, as your example has shown, literally 2 minutes later, and this was, I think, a January, February game, 2 minutes later, you have 3 players on the team speaking to each other like that, you know, and that's just you know, another example when you try to get people to problem solve and stay calm and think clearly under pressure. So yeah. What a really interesting one. A few things for people to think about this week.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you kind of, there's a little throwaway line, but a really important one about how do coaches think calmly under pressure about not only just about, you know, the tactics or the decisions that they might be able to help with, but also just to regulate their own emotions and behaviors in the heat of the moment to do what's right for the development of their players that they're working with, or people or athletes.
Absolutely. And that is something.
It's tricky though. It's tricky.
Yeah. I think we spoke about the where does coaching take place question before, but actually, because we know it doesn't just take place at, you know, 11 to 12, you know, there's the planning part, there's the entry to the premise, wherever it's going to take place, there's the meeting of people and engagement with everybody and anybody. The groundsman, the chairman, you know, the man who is the lock of the gate, the car park man, whatever, is how do you, when you are sitting there thinking about the session and the game or whatever it is, what little processes are you going through to get ready for those conversations, to then get ready for your coach, you know, so all that. So wow, there we go, 20 minutes gone already. Thanks for joining us at Coach Convo, our Twitter handle, as you know, 4 seasons in now, should be in your speed dial of Twitter. coachconversation@gmail.com. Always an email open for conversation support. If you want support for either of us or both, you want to have us chat about it here in one of our episodes, just drop us a line. They're both below, and we will see you next week. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.